Hello, I am Parneet Jaggi, and today we're going to be talking about a very important topic, that why do we need English? Why is English language so important in our day-to-day life? Is it the most needed language, or is it just that it is a popular language so we need to learn or acquire the language? So what is the need of knowing such a language, which is neither our mother tongue nor our first language? So it becomes our second language. What is the need? Why it becomes so dominant in our lives? And why do we need to make it mandatory in our learning process? So let's know a little bit about English language. What is the reality of its significance? Now we know that English is a dominant language these days. It dominates the entire scene of technological research and development. So we call it a dominant language. It is popular, no doubt. It is popular in almost all fields of learning as well as entertainment. So we see that it has become a reality that we need to know the English language to be on some level of learning or some process of development in our lives. Then it is common on several platforms. Now, this means that wherever we go, this is like a common thread which can tie us to the entire nation and to the entire world. So, it is popularly known as English is a window to the world. So, whenever you want to reach out beyond your own town or village or state, you have to reach out to the people or to the sources of information through English language. Then the connectivity, same thing. When we want to connect either with a field of knowledge, with a field of research, with a field of learning, field of communication, field of entertainment, or any other field that we want to enter, we need a common language with which we can connect to the rest of the world, and that common language is now English. Now, it is a wonder, it is a question, and it is a mystery in our minds. We often grapple with this reality as to how in English could become so important. Why only English became so important and so significant throughout the world. So let's go back to the times when it evolved and spread through the world, and that was through the spread of the British Empire, which, when it was at its peak, covered almost 25% of the earth. And during the colonial times, when Britishers made the other states and nations as colonies, the British rulers often obliged the people in those countries living in those colonies to speak English and to use English in more than one way rather than in their own native or indigenous language. So, this was how English spread throughout the world in more than one continent, and it became settled, it got settled in that place where these British imperialists went. Now, the question today is, do we need to learn English? Is it mandatory? Why should we learn English? What is the need? Can't we do without it? Can't we stay at home in a very settled manner without English? Or can't we evolve and develop in our careers without English? Let's see. Now, we know the importance of English. The most highlighted importance of English language is because it is a global language now, and it is a language of international communication. Now, what do we mean by global language? Because it is globally spoken and used in most of the departments of work. Now, it may not be the most spoken language, because we know the first highest spoken language is Mandarin, second is Spanish. But we see that it is the official language of 53 countries and is spoken by around 400 million across the globe. And we also notice that it is 1 out of 5 people can speak English, or at least communicate in one way or the other in English. Now, we know that business occupies a very important domain, a substantial, a large domain of the world's economy. And English is the language of business. English is the dominant business language, and it has become almost a necessity for people to speak English if they have to enter a global workforce. Now, we also notice that research from all over the world shows that cross border business communication is mostly conducted in English, and many international companies expect their own employees to be proficient and fluent in English. Now, today is the world of the corporate business, the corporate companies, the companies that are global in their working and in their networking, such as we have these examples, such as the mobile companies like Nokia, we have the automobile industry, we have these Renault, Samsung, Technicolor, Microsoft, and so on. They have almost mandated English, they have made English language compulsory as their official corporate language. In addition, for an example, we see that the company Rakuten, a Japanese cross between Amazon and eBay, made it mandatory, means compulsory, for their 7,100 Japanese employees to be able to speak English. So we see that these companies demand proficiency in English languages to be a prerequisite to be their employee for the welfare and the smooth functioning of their companies. Now, we live in the world of internet. The age of internet, we have become so addicted, so used to, and so dependent on the internet that now we cannot almost do without it. We have to go to the internet time and again for some work or the other. So English gives us access to more of the internet because most of the internet material is in English. Now, according to a report by Education First, English is the language of the internet. An estimated 565 million people use the internet every day, and an estimated 52% of the world's most visited websites are displayed in the English language. So it becomes quite vivid, quite obvious why we need to know English if we have to use computers and especially the internet database. Now, since we are talking to the students about the students, teachers and students need English for multiple reasons. English leads to a lot more employability for the students than if you do not know English. Why? Because most of the departments use English as their base language. English is the language of science, aviation, computers, diplomacy, and tourism. And obviously, if you know English, it increases your chances of getting a good job, whether in a local company or in a multinational company, within your country or outside your country. You have more scope, you have more flexibility and adaptability if you know English as a language, second language or third language. Now, of course, connectivity is a very important issue when it comes to language. If we move out of Rajasthan or Haryana, Punjab, we may not be very conversant with the languages of the other states. For example, if we move to South India or we move to Bengal or Assam or northeastern states, we may not be able to comfortably communicate with the people of our own country. We may not be knowing Tamil, we may not be knowing Marathi, but English is one such common language where even the people of India form a consensus to make it a common thread of communication. Similarly, if we go out of country, we go out of India, we may not meet our native speakers over there, so we have to have some common platform of communication through which we can communicate. Because we see English is the official language of 53 countries and is used as a lingua franca, which is a mutual base language used by people from all around the world. Now, whether you're working in India or in United Emirates or in America or in Australia or Brazil or Africa, whichever continent, studying English can help us to have a common conversation or communicate with people all over. Now, when it comes to the field of research, innovation, science, scientific findings, we notice that most of the world-class research is carried out in English. Even in India, the research laboratories and the science institutions and research establishments, they all work in English. And at least their findings and observations are shared throughout the world in English language. So, for this reason, having a knowledge of English is incredibly important to those working especially in the field of sciences. Now, coming to the media industry, of course, we know that media all over the world, they share. Today, while sitting in our own homes, we know what is happening all around the world. That is through the power of media. That is through the channel of television, internet, radio, and other sources of media. Now, because of the prominence of Hollywood and global media, an enormous amount of films and series and dramas and serials, TV shows and songs are written in English. So, if we know English, we do not have to rely or depend on translations and subtitles anymore to enjoy our favorite songs and movies and shows and even books. Then, of course, we have discussed that English is the language of the internet, and most of the content on internet is found in English. Now, English gives access to multiple cultures. Now, we may be residing at one place. We may be listening to the music of Rajasthan or music of India, or we may be watching Hindi films or Indian films or South Indian films. But we cannot go beyond this. There is a boundary to which we have to stick if we know just one or two languages of our own native land. But knowing English takes us beyond all boundaries. Good knowledge of English will allow you to access films, music, and literature from hundreds of countries around the globe. Not to mention the fact that numerous books from across the world are translated into English more than any other languages. So we see that experiences while learning the values, habits, and ways of life from a different culture makes you a rich person, makes you more knowledgeable. So, English again behaves as a lingua franca, a common mutual language through which you can access the cultures, languages, and regions, and even topography, even the geographical mysteries through English. So, now, why is English taking over the entire world? What is so special about English? One thing that I find very special is its adaptability, its flexibility. It takes over the words of all the languages which are being commonly used. For example, we have this word called selfie. We click a selfie with a mobile, and this word has been added into the dictionaries. Similarly, we have hashtag, we have blogging. All these words are new to the English language, but they have already been added, included, and valued as members of the English lexicon. More than any other language, English continues to evolve and absorb new words that branch out, often untranslated into other languages. So even it does not deem it necessary to translate the words of languages and then take it to English, but it takes words as they are. For example, from Hindi or from India or from Hindustani, we have words like pan, charpai, divan. These have been taken into the English dictionary as and how. Every year, approximately more than 1,000 new and approved words are added to the Oxford Dictionary. So, this enriches the dictionary each year, and it takes the words from all kinds of cultures and all kinds of languages into its own domain. This tremendous development is the result due to technology, social media, and how spontaneously people coin new words in their daily life. So we see that English has become a welcome language, a global language, a dominant language for this one main reason, that it has been welcoming words from all kinds of cultures and languages into its own domain, and so it has been able to maintain its popularity, and it has been widespread all through the centuries. And we will look at it in the next lecture when we see how historically English developed into such a dominant language. So, this was a brief introduction into why we need English in our lives. Apart from this, we know that while we are residing in our own native countries, in our own homelands, also, we need English to fill the forms of our jobs, to go for the interviews, to appear for the defense services interviews, or for such jobs where some kind of a diplomatic position is awarded to us. And we need English in all kinds of communication where we need to feel confident among ourselves. So I think it leaves no doubt as to why English is important today in our lives. So thank you for now.